it's like, oh, it's so bad. Anyways, so they forgot to file their whatever, so they're not actually a corporation. And if you guys remember from all the classes we've had, if you don't file anything, what's the default? A general partnership, right? So you're just a partnership, even though you came in here thinking that you were going to be a shareholder. So that really sucks, because if you're a corporation, you're protected. You have a shareholder protection liability. But if you're a general partner, then you are jointly and severally liable for everything. So this really sucked in the early common law, because what you had was these corporations, these people who thought they were entering a corporation were actually just a partnership. And so the courts realized that this was kind of like really, it sucked. So they had these two mitigating doctrines, which were called the de facto, which meant that the corporation was treated, or the partnership was treated as a corporation if there was a good faith effort, or if there was a minor defect. So it kind of just limited their liability a little bit more. Or they call it corporation by estoppel, where it would just be too unfair to have the third party sue the shareholders. So this was early common law. Again, I think this defective incorporation question will be asked in a short answer, and it will either be, tell me about this whole thing, which was the thing that we talked about, which was the question that was asked last year on my exam, or it will be, tell me about the new RMBSA, or tell me about early common law. So I would suggest having an answer ready for these three. You might have to type out all of it, or just typing out one of them. Right. And so the court saw that this was a big issue because they had these weird mitigating effects, but corporations couldn't really predict, or you couldn't really predict whether you would be held liable or not, and the law was just kind of muddy. And so they created this thing called MBCA 50, and what it said was that you were only a corporation if you filed. So it didn't say that you weren't that you were a corporation. It said only if you filed, and it erased these two mitigating factors that were in common law. But it said that the only people who would be liable were those who, this is important, quote, assumed to act as a corporation. And so this was supposed to clear the law, but it did just the opposite, because people were like, what does assumed even mean? Like, do you walk around saying, I'm XYZ Corporation? Like, that makes no sense in reality. Like, how do you prove this, right? And they didn't define it. So there's a lot of conflicts with what does this assume to act even mean? How do you assume to act as a corporation? And so they came up with this new RMBCA, which is the same thing, only if you file, you're a corporation. No mitigating factors like those two that were at the common law. But it says that you're only liable if you purported to act as or on behalf of the corporation, and you knew that there was no incorporation. So this knowledge requirement is the new thing, which is really important, because now even directors who aren't shareholders might be liable. And so there is still some unclarity, because when it says purported to act as on behalf of the corporation, does it mean like generally it acted, or does it mean it acted in this specific contract? Right? So that's unclear. The law is unclear on that. The knowledge requirement is sort of kind of mushy too, because it's like, okay, if you're a CEO, do we just